I was wrist deep in a Linux kernel panic when I got the Slack ping that would have sent most engineers into a fetal position. Entire production cluster down. Nothing was loading, not the client dashboard, not the analytics backend, not even the Gotham login page. Just a swirling loading circle and existential dread. I exhaled through my nose, took a sip of cold coffee that tasted like defeat, and cracked my knuckles like a symphony conductor about to conduct a code base. 14 minutes later, the glitch was patched, the autoscaler stabilized, and the junior devs were flooding the channel with messages like I'd just performed divine intervention with a bash script. No thank you from management, of course. Not even a thumbs up emoji. Just radio silence like always. That's the rhythm here. Victoria builds, fixes, automates, monitors, and is otherwise treated like a glorified Roomba with a comp TIA cert. They don't know the infrastructure like I do, because I am the infrastructure. I remember when this company was four weirdos in a garage, and I was their one-woman dev ops army. We didn't have funding. We didn't have policies. We had duct tape dreams and ramen ambition. So when AWS wouldn't give us enterprise access without a real tax ID, and the founders were too busy pitching VCs to deal with actual tech, guess who signed up with her personal enterprise account to spin up the first virtual environment? Spoiler, it wasn't Steve, the CEO, who once called HTML that fancy spreadsheet language. Nobody ever migrated it. Not when we raised Series A. Not when we moved into an office with actual bathrooms. Not even when we were acquired by some faceless corporate blob that sent us monthly newsletters full of words like scalability synergy. The whole damn system, the pipelines, the cron jobs, the SCI/CD, even the DNS failovers, was still humming quietly under my credentials. They all just assumed it belonged to the company. Because I belonged to the company. Oh, and while we're pausing in this little moment of truth, quick side note, 97% of you who are listening to this, you're not subscribed. Yeah, I know. You meant to, but then your phone buzzed or your cat stepped on your keyboard. Happens to the best of us. But listen, this channel is just me. One sleep-deprived woman screaming into the algorithm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers before my sanity fully evaporates into JSON logs. So if you're enjoying this ride, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Help a fellow burnout out. Anyway, these days, I'm the invisible gear in the machine. I don't talk much in meetings unless someone proposes something suicidal like migrating everything to Azure in a weekend. I know where every digital bone is buried. I've duct taped more 0 days than I can count. The juniors treat me like a ghost, a mythical sysadmin creature who only materializes in the server logs and leaves behind perfectly optimized queries. And I was okay with that, truly. There's a weird sort of satisfaction in knowing that without me, this whole damn Tower of Babel collapses like a Jenga tower made of bad decisions and Docker containers. I didn't need a spotlight. Just give me root access, a functioning VPN, and don't touch my shell scripts. Then came Todd. I didn't even notice him at first. Just another middle management leech spawned from the acquisition, wearing a salmon-colored button-up and speaking exclusively in HR Mad Libs. Let's circle back on that paradigm shift. We need to lean into our cloud-first agility. Todd was the kind of guy who scheduled meetings to talk about meetings. The kind of guy who'd make a Google Doc just to list reasons why someone else should do his job. He didn't ask what I did, didn't try to understand the tech stack, just assumed I was another cog in his org chart. I watched him in our first all-hands Zoom scribbling on a whiteboard behind him, optimize synergy/reduce legacy risk/align assets. Yeah, I aligned assets, all right, right into my S3 buckets. Back then, it was still manageable. I kept to myself. I maintained the system. I cleaned up after the marketing team's emergency product launches like some digital janitor armed with Git commits. The only real red flag came during one of Todd's first workflow optimization meetings, where he asked, super casual, if I had a full inventory of our cloud infrastructure in one easy-to-digest format. I gave him a noncommittal shrug and said I'd look into it. Because sure, Todd, let me just hand you the nuclear codes. Let me just spell out in one easy-to-digest format that every single byte your company runs on lives under my name, on an account I pay for out of my own pocket because nobody ever bothered to update a damn thing in 5 years. But hey, what could go wrong, right? Todd introduced himself like a guy who practiced handshakes in the mirror and still couldn't get it right. Clammy grip, overly eager eye contact, and the kind of forced smile you only see on real estate agents and politicians caught in a scandal. Victoria, I'm so excited to collaborate with you, he said, dragging out the so like we were about to get married or start a podcast. I really want to synergize our departmental strengths. I've debugged orphan microservices faster than it took me to decode that sentence. My response was the same deadpan I give the team when they tell me Jenkins broke for no reason. Todd came in hot, fresh off the corporate conveyor belt from our new parent company, Opticron or OptoCorp, or some other Silicon Valley name that sounds like an evil pill. He didn't have a tech background, which would have been fine if he didn't pretend to. Every meeting was a TED talk from hell. He'd say things like, let's circle back on containerizing our cultural ethos, or I'd love to leverage our Kubernetes for blue sky thinking. The man had never seen a YAML file in his life, but he spoke like ChatGPT on a double shot of jargon. Our first one-on-one was scheduled as brainstorming touchpoint for Agile realignment. I showed up with my VPN still tunneling and a headache blooming in my temples. Victoria, I see you're listed here as our senior systems architect, he said, scrolling through a spreadsheet he clearly didn't understand. Can you give me a 30,000-foot overview of your weekly value outputs? I blinked. You want me to summarize 5 years of undocumented infrastructure maintenance in a sentence? Exactly, he beamed, thinking he'd just given me a compliment. From that moment on, I knew I was screwed. He didn't ask what I was working on, didn't ask what needed upgrading, what was breaking, or where we were vulnerable. Instead, he asked about employee sentiment metrics and floated the idea of gamifying our ticket resolutions. The guy wanted to give us leaderboards for fixing servers. At first, I tried to ignore him. Smile, nod, return to my bash scripts. But then came the Slack messages. The endless, chirping Slack messages. Hey Victoria, quick ping. Can you send me a simplified list of our asset dependencies, infra-wide? Need to align with procurement for Q4. I stared at that message like it was written in Comic Sans on a tombstone. Because here's the thing, if I sent Todd what he asked for, a real asset inventory, it would show everything. All the subnets, all the virtual machines, every dangling Lambda function, every single component of our Frankenstein stack, tied directly to my personal enterprise cloud account. The account I created when this place was just a dream and a dozen shell scripts. I replied with, that'll take time, need to consolidate data across multiple tools, we'll follow up later. He sent me a thumbs up emoji. I fantasized about writing a bash script that'd delete it in real time. Todd's meetings got worse. He made us download Trello. Trello, like we were planning a high school bake sale. He wanted daily check-ins with engineers whose entire job was keeping the company from imploding silently. He introduced no meeting Fridays, then booked mandatory Friday morale calls. He once used the phrase, let's synergize our lunch order. I wish I were kidding. Meanwhile, I was quietly patching vulnerabilities in the billing gateway and hot-swapping servers after a misconfigured deployment almost nuked our uptime. But Todd never saw any of that. To him, I was just Victoria from Tech Ops, someone who failed to fill out the quarterly goals doc with enough bullet points. The mood on the team shifted. Engineers who used to message me with questions now looped Todd in first. Not because they respected him, but because they were scared. He started calling people rock stars and low performers in the same breath, like our worth could be measured in Jira tickets closed. Then came the straw that snapped the last thread of my patience. A calendar invite labeled in for ownership review. Description: exploring migration opportunities and auditing asset control. I stared at that invite like it had personally insulted my lineage. Todd was digging. He didn't know what he was digging for, but he knew there was something under his feet. And if he ever found out that our entire production environment was effectively squatting on my personal enterprise cloud account, he'd probably call legal. Or worse, he'd try to migrate everything himself. I didn't decline the invite. I didn't accept it either. I just sat at my desk, surrounded by the warm, familiar hum of my private server rack. And for the first time in years, I felt it again, something cold, something creeping, foreboding. I'd built this kingdom. Every switch, every port, every encrypted secret. And now some clown with a PowerPoint fetish was trying to audit the throne. Todd had no idea what he was about to step on. It was 2:13 a.m., and I was elbows deep in a code repo that hadn't been touched since the Obama administration. One of our oldest authentication modules was being exploited through a chain of vulnerabilities that some jackass on a Discord server decided to test in production. I was 3 Red Bulls deep and rewriting legacy Python so brittle it practically cracked when I hit backspace. While Todd was probably spooning his live laugh love stitch pillow, I was holding the digital floodgates shut with duct tape and caffeine. I deployed the patch at 3:02 a.m., ran the test suite, monitored the logs. The exploit failed clean. No downtime, no PR disaster. Just silence, the soft mechanical hum of my fan, and the grim satisfaction of having saved the company from yet another security headline. I closed my laptop. My eyes felt like I'd sandpapered them. My brain was molasses. I didn't check the calendar. Turns out, Todd had scheduled a mandatory team bonding icebreaker session at 8 a.m. sharp. He called it coffee and culture. It was apparently essential that I join a Zoom call where interns guessed each other's favorite cereal. Instead, I was unconscious in a tangle of bedsheets and cat hair, dreaming about firebombing Jenkins. When I finally stirred around noon, I had 15 Slack pings, 2 missed calls from no caller ID, and 1 email sitting at the top of my inbox like a landmine. Subject: access revocation notification from Todd Witherspoon at Opticron Biz. 2. Victoria Zhang, Victoria at CompanyCom. Timestamp: 8:37 a.m. Body: Victoria. Our earlier communication regarding team alignment and participation expectations, We regret to inform you that your system's access has been revoked, effective immediately. Please contact HR if you have any questions. Wishing you the best in your future endeavors. Regards, Todd Witherspoon, Senior Workflow Strategist. No call. No meeting. No explanation. No acknowledgement of 5 years, 14 all-nighters, 3 major outages averted. Or the fact that I just fixed a security hole that could have cost millions. Just a polite middle finger dressed in HR perfume. I clicked over to the admin portal. Logged in. Access denied. I tried VPN. Connection refused. I checked my SSH keys. Key rejected. Every root-level door that once welcomed me like an old friend now slammed in my face with mechanical finality. For a moment, I just sat there, staring, not blinking, not breathing. The rage didn't come fast. It arrived slow, like smoke under a locked door. A quiet, simmering heat that turned my fingertips numb. All the times I patched their broken garbage at midnight. All the stupid meetings I sat through, while pretending Todd was anything but a parasite in salmon-colored polos. All the times I carried their fragile little empire on my back while being treated like some faceless IT golem. All of it erased, exiled, like I was a temp they forgot to offboard properly. I reread the email once, twice, then a third time just to feel it burn. Contact HR, it said. HR, the department that took 3 weeks to fix my name badge but managed to issue Todd's coffee expense reimbursement in 24 hours. I could have emailed back. I could have begged for clarification. But begging wasn't my style. Not anymore. Because here's the punchline Todd didn't know. You can revoke my company access all you want, but you never revoked my cloud account. The one your entire infrastructure is running on. The one I pay for every month on my Amex. You can lock me out of Slack. You can take my badge. You can even cut off my email. But the heartbeat of your $1 million operation? It's still beating in my name. I opened a private browser tab, logged into my personal enterprise admin console. No multi-factor needed, just muscle memory and vengeance. Dashboard loaded. One glance told me everything was still there, still alive, still mine. Dozens of EC2 instances, load balancers, DNS entries, Bastion hosts, internal dashboards, backend queues, legacy logs, database clusters spanning 4 regions. It was like looking at the skeleton of a company that didn't know it was already dead. I sat back in my chair, staring at that glowing screen full of quiet leverage. My mouth went dry. And somewhere, underneath the flood of white-hot fury, came something else. A grin, not joyful, not triumphant. The kind of grin you get when you realize the people who just screwed you haven't even begun to understand what kind of hell they've unleashed. The only sound in the room was the low whir of my server rack, that familiar white noise hum I'd tuned out years ago. The same way you stop noticing an air conditioner until it dies, and you remember what silence actually is. My cat Marlowe blinked at me from the windowsill like even he wasn't sure what to make of the barely contained war crime flickering across my retinas. The screen glowed with quiet, digital arrogance. Enterprise Admin Console Victoria Zhang. Every system was live, healthy, responsive. My domain, my architecture, still ticking in perfect rhythm like some orchestral monstrosity I built by hand, blindfolded, while everyone else clapped Todd on the back for switching us to dark mode. Rows of compute nodes, petabytes of structured data, billing dashboards linked directly to my personal Amex. The VPCs, the IAM roles, disaster recovery backups I configured after legal said not our problem. Monitoring tools I built myself. The damn Kubernetes cluster I'd named after Firefly characters. All mine. I stared at it for a long time, not with pride, not anymore. It felt like looking at a child you raised that ran off and got adopted by a family that immediately renamed it asset hash 457B and made it wear khakis. Part of me wanted to delete everything. Just press that beautiful, terrifying red button and watch the whole tech stack implode like a Las Vegas hotel demolition. But that would have been too quick, too loud. No, what I needed was quiet devastation, a scalpel, not a hammer. I lit a cigarette I hadn't touched since grad school and let the smoke curl up toward the ceiling where cobwebs clung to the cheap IKEA light fixture like dead promises. I took a drag, exhaled, and started thinking. Not like a coder, like a surgeon. First, no deletions that would trigger alerts. I didn't want them to know what was happening, not yet. I navigated to the routing rules. One by one, I started editing DNS entries. The company's shiny public site, redirected. Internal tooling dashboard, redirected. Admin panels, load balancers, login portals, redirected. To what? That took a minute. I opened a blank HTML file in my editor. Tried writing something scathing, something clever, something that screamed betrayal and fury. You don't fire the person who holds your spine together. Too self-righteous. Nice infrastructure. Shame if someone owned it. Too meme why. System error you fed around. Now you're finding out. Tempting, but I wasn't writing a t-shirt. I leaned back and let the silence fill the room, then typed 3 words. Pay me. That was it. Cold, simple, indifferent, like a ransom note written by the weather. I uploaded it as a static page. Set it as the default redirect endpoint. Next, I tweaked the access logs, stripped out IP tracking, disabled verbose error output, scrubbed the source metadata. No fingerprints. Just a black screen and white text waiting like the eyes of a predator in the dark. I saved the changes. Somewhere in a conference room across the city, Todd was probably walking someone through his vision slide deck on a monitor that was now cycling through a loading spinner, and then, abruptly, Amy, no logo, no footer, no navigation bar, just a white sans serif ultimatum on a black background. I didn't smile, I didn't laugh, there was no satisfaction yet, only gravity. I stared at the list of active instances. I could see them pinging, calling home, looking for services that had just evaporated. It was like watching a heartbeat flatline. I powered down my work laptop, physically yanked the Ethernet cable from the router just for the symbolism, tossed my corporate phone in the drawer and slammed it shut like sealing a tomb. Then I sat back, stared into the glow of the screen, and whispered to no one in particular. Let's synergize this, Todd. I didn't hesitate. No countdown, no dramatic key smash montage, no cinematic hesitation where the protagonist almost backs out and has a crisis of conscience. Just a quiet click. Then another. Then a soft, deliberate keystroke that told the entire digital skeleton of the company, "You're mine now." Routing rules updated, DNS flushed. The sites didn't crash. That's what made it so beautiful. They worked, technically. The servers responded. The SSL certs checked out. Load balancers didn't even blink. Monitoring dashboards lit up with successful HTTP 200s. But every single one of those clean, healthy connections now pointed to a 17 KB static page I wrote in 5 minutes flat. Pay me. No logo, no context, no escape hatch. Just that flat, sterile demand blinking back like the business end of a loaded gun. I closed the terminal calmly like I'd just finished replying to an email. No fanfare, no alarms. Just a soft tick from the system clock advancing another second closer to someone, probably Todd, sweating into a conference call wondering why the dashboard won't load. Why the HR portal now looks like a ransom note from an accountant. Why the internal dev tools, client-facing API endpoints, login authentication tokens, all lead to a black screen with 2 words and one demand. I got up, walked across the room, and grabbed the company-issued laptop off the second desk. That thin gray rectangle they'd mailed me after the acquisition, with the "Welcome to Opticron" sticker peeling off like it knew this place was cursed. Held the power button, waited for the fan to spin down. The screen went black. Then I set it down carefully like a corpse I didn't want to wake and moved to my personal machine. Muted my phone, not silenced. Muted, there's a difference. One implies you're still listening. The other is a confession. I'm done hearing from you. I didn't turn it off. I wanted to see the chaos unfold. Just not hear it scream, and then nothing. Not a single thing happened. No explosion, no sirens, just stillness. It was like the air shifted, molecules holding their breath, waiting for the first shout on the other end of some very expensive Zoom call. I stood there for a moment, wondering if I'd feel guilt. Panic. Fear. Nope. What I felt was the terrifying calm that comes right after a car crash. That weird floating sensation where everything feels slow and meaningless and perfect. Like the laws of reality paused just long enough for you to appreciate how many choices you never knew you were making. I sat back down and stared at my admin console. Servers, still running. Storage, untouched. Compute time, actively burning money. Infrastructure, alive but gagged, bound, neutered. It was exquisite. A symphony of functionality but useless. Like a luxury car with the steering wheel removed and the brakes rerouted to a text-to-speech program that only says no. I imagined the Slack messages starting to pile up. Hey, is anyone else seeing this weird error? Client logins down. DevTools just says pay me. Is this a joke? Is this Victoria? That last one would be the start of the unraveling. I'd given them no warning, no threats, no trail, just one message, short enough to fit in a tweet, heavy enough to crater a quarterly earnings call. Pay me. I leaned back, stretched until my shoulders popped, and listened to the hum of my server rack. It was louder now, not physically but emotionally. That buzz was the only living sound in the building. A heartbeat, not theirs. Mine. I reached for my coffee, took a long, cold sip, and let the quietness wrap around me like a weighted blanket full of sharp edges. This was it. No turning back. God help the first idiot who tried to treat this like a help desk ticket. By 4:37 p.m., my phone was vibrating like a wasp nest in a lawnmower. The silence I'd carefully wrapped around myself was officially dead, killed by a tsunami of panic disguised as professionalism. The first few texts were harmless enough. Hey Vic, think we're having some DNS issues? Sites down. Login portal is throwing a weird page. Did you push something? Lol, did you set up a joke page? Is this you? Then the tone shifted. We're locked out of prod. You know anything about this? Brenda said you still had access. You need to fix this now. Todd's freaking out. Legal is on this. You're not helping yourself. The voicemails were worse. Desperation soaked in fake concern like frosting on a spoiled cake. Hey Victoria, just looping you in real quick. We're having some unexpected technical difficulties and Todd's asking if you've seen anything unusual on your end. No pressure, just give me a ring when you can, okay? Translation. We need you to undo this, but we don't want to say your name out loud in the war room because legal might already be recording us. I muted the thread. Let the screen light up and buzz until it burned itself out. Let the panic boil on someone else's stove for once. Then came Brenda. She was the only one I hadn't braced myself for. Brenda and I used to eat lunch over Zoom, share memes during all-hands meetings. She's the one who slipped me the heads up that Todd was floating a restructure that curiously omitted anyone with a spine or critical thinking skills. She was, by all accounts, my friend. Her name popped up on the caller ID, and like a fool, I answered. Victoria, she whispered like we were on a prison phone. I don't know what's happening over there, but this looks really, really bad. I said nothing. I mean, it has to be a misunderstanding, right? She continued, trying to thread the needle between ally and hostage negotiator. They think it's you. I told them it couldn't be, but can you just call Todd or legal? Just maybe take the page down so we can talk, like this was a spat over parking spots. Brenda, I said flatly, is the system broken? There was a pause. No, but it's inaccessible. Exactly. Another pause, then the sigh. You know they're not going to respond well to this. I'm counting on it. She hesitated again. Look, I'm not defending Todd, okay? He's a freak with a clipboard fetish. But this isn't the way. You're putting all of us in a bind. There are clients, deadlines. I'm just asking you to be reasonable. That was the line that did it. Be reasonable. Like I hadn't spent 5 years being the most reasonable person in the damn building. Like I hadn't been the digital janitor. The firewall, the heartbeat, the last line of defense between order and chaos while they threw pizza parties and planned trust falls. I'll tell you what's unreasonable, I said. Firing someone without cause, locking them out of a system they built, and then acting surprised when the lights go out. I'm just saying you should be careful, she whispered. But it wasn't concern in her voice anymore. It was fear. Not for me, for her own skin, her own job, her own place in the Toddian food chain. I hung up. Then, 2 minutes later, the cherry on top arrived in my inbox. Subject: unauthorized interference notification from HR at Opticron Biz 2, Victoria at Personnel Mailcom. Dear Miss Zhang, we are aware of recent disruptions to company infrastructure and are investigating a potential breach of intellectual property. If you are in possession of company data or systems access, request that you immediately cease all activity and contact our legal department. Failure to comply may result in civil and / or criminal proceedings. Sincerely, Opticron Legal and HR Compliance Division. Ah yes. The threat, classic move. No call, no dialogue. Just a form letter full of chest-puffing legalese sent by an intern in a WeWork cubicle. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just moved it to a folder I named Folder of Things That Make Me More Certain I'm Right. Then I sat back in my chair. Alone, again. Except this time it wasn't the peaceful solitude of quiet dignity. It was isolation. Cold, calculated, a vacuum formed by betrayal and silence. Even Brenda had folded. The lines had been drawn. And I had just become a department of one with all the keys and none of the mercy. The call came just after sunset, when the shadows get long and the panic gets formal. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me it wasn't another HR intern looking for a scapegoat or a junior dev trying to sneak me a Slack thread. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. Victoria? The voice on the other end was strained, older than I remembered. It's Mark. Mark Walker, the original founder. The guy I used to build staging environments with over lukewarm gas station coffee and vending machine Cheetos. Once upon a time, we shared a vision, ragged, messy, caffeine-fueled dreams of building something from scratch. I watched him raise millions. I watched him hand it all over to the suits in exchange for scalability. Now he was a ghost in the machine, title only, a founder in exile. And tonight, he was calling me like a priest visiting the condemned. I just wanted to talk, he said. I didn't say anything. I let the silence stretch. He filled it, of course. They always do. I don't know what happened with Todd. I mean, I've heard the stories. I know he's difficult. But this is bad, Vic. His voice cracked a little on my name. He was trying to humanize me again, walk me back into the fold with soft edges and shared memories. You know I fought for you during the restructure. You know I never signed off on that access revocation. That was all them, legal, Todd, procurement. None of them know how this place works. Hell, they barely knew what you did. Still, I said nothing. Let him marinate in it. I read the email Todd sent, he continued. I was shocked, appalled. That's not how you treat people. Especially not someone who built the damn company. A pause. I could hear him shifting in his chair. Maybe sipping from a water bottle. Maybe trying to collect his thoughts before delivering the big ask. All I'm saying is we can fix this. I'm not here to scold or demand. I just want to understand where you're at. I finally spoke. My message is on the screen. Silence. I imagined him blinking at his monitor, staring into the void of that black page, the words pay me reflected in his tired, aging eyes. I saw it, he said. Believe me, the entire board's seen it. They've been in meetings all day, trying to figure out if it's a hack or it's not a hack. I interrupted. No, I know, I told them it wasn't. I told them this is personal. That's when his voice lowered, dropped the company line, slid into the honest register. Look, we messed up. I messed up. Somewhere along the line, the company became something we didn't recognize. You gave everything to this place and it tossed you like last quarter's hardware. I can't fix the past, but I can get them to listen. Not what I'm asking for, he sighed, deep and exhausted. They won't negotiate while that message is up. Then they're not ready to talk. Another silence, this one heavier. You understand what kind of pressure they are under, right? Clients are calling, press is sniffing. There's already a rumor going around that we were hit with ransomware. They weren't far off. That's not who you are, Vic. I smiled bitterly. That's where you're wrong, Mark. That's exactly who I am when pushed. He exhaled again. Softer this time, defeated. I wish it hadn't come to this. It didn't have to. They made a choice. Now they live with it. For a second, he didn't say anything. I thought he might cry or apologize or try some last-ditch emotional blackmail like you were like family. But he didn't. Instead, he just said, "What do you want?" And just like that, the shift was complete. I wasn't the disgruntled ex-employee anymore. I was the one with the power, the keys, the leverage. He didn't call to guilt me. He called to ask. And I let him sit with that. Let him feel the weight of the new world we were in. Then I said, calmly, clearly, "You already know. The screen says everything I need to," and I hung up. The email came in at 9:42 a.m. the next morning, dressed in corporate drag and sprayed down with just enough PR deodorant to pretend it wasn't a bribe wrapped in condescension. Subject: resolution proposal, severance and goodwill bonus from Exec Relations at Opticron Biz. Dear Miss Zhang, in an effort to resolve the current situation amicably and expediently, you're offering the following: standard severance package in accordance with your years of service, a one-time bonus of $15,000 for inconvenience and transitional support, a positive reference letter. We ask that you immediately cease all interference with company operations and transfer infrastructure credentials to the IT department. We look forward to moving forward constructively. Sincerely, Exec Relations Opticron Inc. I laughed so hard I startled Marlowe off the windowsill. 15 grand, 15 grand, that's what they thought this was worth. That's what they thought I was worth. After 5 years of babysitting their digital colossus, bleeding security patches out of my eyeballs, getting dumped by email, and turning their entire operation into a hostage crisis with one DNS redirect, they thought they could slap a ribbon on it and call it closure. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. 15 minutes later, a new email hit. Subject: urgent. Legal escalation warning from Legal at Opticron Biz. Miss Zhang, this is to inform you that if the unauthorized interference with Opticron digital systems is not halted within the next 6 hours, we will be initiating formal legal proceedings under federal statutes governing computer fraud, corporate sabotage, and data extortion. We strongly encourage you to reconsider your course of action. Regards, Opticron Legal Cute. I opened my terminal, navigated to a folder named DR Backups, then to a script I hadn't touched in years, one I'd built during our first funding round back when we couldn't afford unlimited storage. Auto Purge Backup Spy. It was a failsafe. A script designed to clean out old disaster recovery data if it hadn't been accessed in 30 days. Backups of databases, configs, internal documentation. All the bones of the company neatly zipped and timestamped, and all hosted under my personal cloud storage bucket. I opened the config file. Read the comment I'd left myself in a moment of chaotic good energy. #auto-delete to avoid billing nightmares. Don't forget, this SHT is nuclear. I checked the schedule. Next run, 23 hours, 47 minutes. All I had to do was nothing. No commands, no flags, no malice, just inaction. If they didn't transfer ownership or negotiate like grown-ups, every single disaster recovery file would disappear into the digital ether. Irreversible. Gone. Not with a bang, but with a scheduler job and a lack of imagination. I screenshotted the config, attached it to an email. Subject: countdown to Legal at Opticron Biz. Todd Witherspoon at Opticron Biz. Body. You're looking at a backup set with 92 TB of production data. The automated cleanup script is still active. No one's accessed it in 27 days. Clock's ticking. VI hit send, sat back, waited. Then, like fate heard I needed one more match in the gas tank, I got a DM from Jay Stokes at CompanyCom. Subject: just so you know, hey, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I figured you deserve to know. During Todd's restructure meetings, Brenda told legal that you were emotionally unstable and probably had ongoing unauthorized access. She said it to cover herself. Todd was pressing hard and she folded. I didn't want to believe it, but I heard it myself. I'm sorry. I stared at that message for a long time. Brenda, my one so-called ally, the Zoom lunch buddy, the one who called last night, whispering like she still cared, sold me out like a day-old stock option. Not because she believed any of it, not because I was dangerous, but because Todd was sharpening axes and she didn't want her neck on the block, so she put mine there instead. That was the last ember of hesitation. The last flicker of maybe I've gone too far. I hadn't gone far enough. This wasn't about 15 grand. This wasn't even about money anymore. This was about principle. And every single one of them, from Todd to legal to the boardroom of cowards that thought pay me was negotiable, was going to feel it. They had 23 hours, and I was done blinking first. The Zoom link was labeled Mandatory Resolution Conference in all caps, as if screaming it made it any more authoritative. I joined 2 minutes early, just to be petty. Mark was already there, tired eyes, loosened collar, the face of a man trying to broker peace in a war he helped start but no longer controlled. Beside him, head of legal, a gray slab in a $2,000 suit with the charm of a granite countertop. He had a stack of folders behind him like this was a deposition instead of a surrender. And then Todd. He looked like microwaved regret. Pale, sweating, collar too tight, eyes twitching around the screen like someone had taped a gun to his mouse hand. I half expected to see a bottle of Pepto just off camera. Victoria, Mark started, voice low, diplomatic, like he was speaking to a feral animal that had learned how to launch missiles. Thanks for joining. We want to resolve this. I'm sure you do. Legal cleared his throat. Let's be clear, this meeting is not an admission of wrongdoing by Opticron, but rather a good faith effort to de-escalate. Skip it. I cut in, clicking share screen. Up came a presentation I'd prepared last night while the purge script ticked down like a bomb under their bedsheets. First slide, valuation of infrastructure services rendered. 2018 present line by line, estimated labor hours, market rates, value of uptime, security breaches prevented, patches written, architectures deployed, hours on call, nights without sleep. I even factored in interest. The total slid into view like a guillotine. $2.1 million. Todd made a sound like someone trying to swallow a live bee. Here's how this goes, I said. You wire that amount to the account number at the bottom of the slide. In full, no installments, no performance-based BS. Mark rubbed his temples. Legal looked like he'd aged a decade in a minute. And I added, you fire Todd today in writing during this call. You send the notice, you copy me, and you read it out loud. I want it documented. Todd straightened, a weak protest on his lips. This is extortion, no, Todd, I said, leaning in. Voice flat as winter pavement. This is consequences, and I'm not done. Slide 3 loaded. An internal memo Brenda once sent me. Sloppy, careless, and now useful. I want a formal, company-wide apology sent from the board to all staff, acknowledging the wrongful termination of my role and my critical contributions to the company's infrastructure. No NDA. No, we regret the misunderstanding word salad. I want it real and public. Legal inhaled like he was about to say absolutely not. Then I clicked into my terminal and pulled up the countdown. 5 hours, 12 minutes until auto-purge backup spy initiates. Mark closed his eyes. Let's wire the money. The next 20 minutes were a flurry of digital paperwork. Wire forms, routing confirmations, legal muttering obscenities under his breath while trying to move corporate funds fast enough to keep their digital lungs from collapsing. Then the notification hit my phone. Incoming wire transfer, plus $2,100,000 and 0 cents USD cleared. Settled, final. Now, I said, let's see the termination. Mark nodded. Todd opened his mouth, then shut it. A second later, I got an email CC'd to me. Subject, termination of employment, Todd Witherspoon body. Effective immediately, Todd Witherspoon is no longer employed by Opticron Inc. I smiled. Good. I said, now watch closely. I opened my cloud console, navigated to the infrastructure ownership dashboard. One by one, I initiated transfers, transferred access to new corporate-owned keys, reassigned permissions, revoked my user profile. By the time I was done, I no longer existed in their system, just a ghost that once held their soul in her palm. Pleasure doing business, I said, and ended the call. But I wasn't finished. One last act. I opened a fresh email to the board. Attached a 42-page dossier, screenshots, chat logs, timelines. Every time Todd botched a decision, every time Brenda covered for him, every warning I gave ignored, a paper trail of rot. Subject, for your records body, you paid me to fix the system. Here's what broke it. Send. Then I closed my laptop, folded it shut like a book I'd finally finished. The room was quiet. Still, I looked around and realized there was nothing left to protect, no war to fight. Just me, my server rack, and a fresh 7-figure bank balance staring back from the glow of my second monitor. I didn't cry, didn't laugh, just sat there, letting the weight of 5 years dissolve into pixels. They burned the bridge first. I just made sure it never got rebuilt. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.